special classroom or having a resource room to go to. Even in a day treatment center, there's the center where they can calm down if they're having a hard time. The staff need to be able to really find out what's available in that school, what would be helpful to that child, and how we can get that child involved in those services. We also have to think about supervision in the schools. Resources for many of our schools are limited, not only in materials, but also in terms of supervision. Some schools may be operating with little to no support for our teachers and other school personnel, which can result in our clients being unsupervised. When we look at natural supports, natural supports are whomever the client considers as such. These individuals can be supportive through financial assistance, emotional support, transportation, childcare, respite, among others. As clinicians and case managers, it is our role to help the families in our care to identify these individuals, as well as how they are supportive. Within the community, supportive individuals could be identified in religious affiliations, schools, area recreation centers, mentors, etc. Increasing community and natural supports can help reduce risk of harm to our clients and their families. When we think of natural supports, as clinicians and supervisors, we know what we're asking. But a lot of times our families have a hard time identifying those who are natural supports for them. They may feel that they don't want to impose on anyone. They may feel hesitant to ask others for help. So it's really up to us to help them to identify those who are possible natural supports and help them to negotiate with those people on how they can help them out. Our role in the mental health field is to empower our clients. And once we are done with our services to them, they need to do it on their own. And natural supports is the easiest way for that to happen. So with us helping them to build their natural support system, it really empowers them to be able to navigate systems without us, to really do things without the help of the mental health system. Now we're going to get into clinician safety. We always want to make sure that our clinicians are safe, both in an office setting and in a home-based setting. In an office setting, a lot of times we tell our staff to sit closest to the door, and to avoid having your back to the door. We want to make sure that there is not an angry client between us and the door. This could end up in having us stuck in a room with someone who is at risk of harming the clinician. We need to ensure that a phone is in reach. We at at Starfish Lifespan, we have a phone number that we can call that will ring on everyone's desk in case of an emergency. I think that it's really important that each of the agencies that work with our clients have some sort of safety plan, if you will, that can help us with making sure that our clinicians and case managers are safe. Try not to have objects in the room that could cause harm. This is hard to do, I understand that. Even a pen can be dangerous. We had a client go after the mom with a pen right to her face, and mom luckily was able to stop that from happening. I'm not saying to get rid of all pens and all sharp objects, but we need to make sure that we are aware of anything that could be harmful and make sure that our staff know where to keep those objects, make sure that they are aware of their surroundings at all times. We need to screen for safety issues as discussed before we even start services. We have a safety checklist at Starfish that we go through with the family, talking about if they have any for home-based services, if they have any pets in the home, any guns in the home, but also if there is a history of aggressive behavior. If so, that can also affect the office setting. We need to develop, review, and update agency policies and procedures regarding clinician safety. Things are changing always in this field, and we need to be able to have our policies in place that really reflect the current state of things so that we can make sure that we are always on top of anything that might happen that may put our staff or our clients at risk. Clinicians can inform supervisors and or clerical staff of possible negative situations pertaining to specific clients prior to the meeting with them. I know that when I talk to my staff, I always want to make sure that I'm aware of a case that is coming into the office that may be, if we've recently called protective services, or if there has been a recent physical altercation between the child and the family, that we are aware of those things and we let others in the building know so that we can make sure that people have a little ear out to make sure that everything is safe during this session. For community-based staff, we teach them to not park in the driveway unless a clear path to leave is available. This is so that they don't get blocked in the driveway. We ask them to be aware of anything unusual, be aware of all entrances and exits, have a buddy system. At Starfish, we have used in the past where we buddy up two people and they have to contact each other at the end of the day just to say, hey, I'm okay, I'm going home. Ensure that the home is conducive to a therapy session. Remind parents to keep all weapons locked up. We tell our staff to leave if you feel uncomfortable. So we need to really be clear when we're talking to our staff about what possible things could happen while they're in the community and what their role is, what their obligations are, and what their obligations are not. Make sure that the staff have a cell phone with them at all times, for obvious reasons, if they can call for help if need be. Do not leave items on the seats of your car in case they are stolen. I've had staff's belongings stolen, their cars stolen, their catalytic converter stolen. You can't obviously hide your catalytic converter, but just making sure that you're aware of your surroundings. Be mindful of dogs and other potentially dangerous animals. I myself was bit in the face by a dog at a home visit, and I'm smiling about it now, it was a very long time ago. But a lot of times we have animal lovers, and they want to meet the dogs and that type of thing, and it's really just a really much better idea to make sure that the families keep their animals locked up. So now we're going to move on to crisis planning. We have to look at suicidality. The goal of crisis intervention is to lessen the intensity, duration, and presence of a crisis that is perceived as overwhelming and that can lead to self-injurious behaviors. Suicidal ideation can be associated with a desire or wish to die, intent, and a reason or rationale for wanting to die, motivation. It is essential to explore the presence or absence of ideation. Suicidal plans. A client has identified a means to commit suicide, possibly a suicide note, giving away belongings, etc. With plans, we also need to ask them, if they have ideations, I'm feeling like I'd like to hurt myself, to kill myself, well, how would you go about doing that? So that way we know if their plan is something that they could actually follow through with. If they say I would shoot myself, do they have access to a gun? If they say I'm going to jump off a bridge, do they have a bridge in mind? If it's one down the street, we need to be very aware of the implications that could easily happen. A suicidal attempt, the act of suicidal behaviors which likely will result in death. Parasuicidal behaviors such as self-mutilation and self-harming behaviors such as cutting and pinning. These are very common among our youth today. And we need to be able to, our staff need to be able to assess for where it falls in that continuum, where the behavior falls in that continuum. A lot of children use cutting or self-mutilation as a means to cope with trauma, to cope with depression, anxiety, fear, sometimes just feeling, as a lot of teenagers do, feeling alone, unheard. And so we need to make sure that the cutting and self-mutilation behaviors are just that and not a suicidal attempt, and not a show that an example of how they may want to actually kill themselves. I think it's also really important for our staff to understand, especially new staff coming into the field, when we think about suicidal clients, many people are afraid to ask, do you want to kill yourself, and use those actual words. It's very uncomfortable for a lot of our staff, but we have to have them practice saying those things. Do you want to kill yourself? Do you want to die? Because hurt yourself means something completely different than suicide. So, also, I should say, when I've heard a lot of new staff saying, I don't want to put the idea in their head. That is not going to happen. We have to make sure our staff are aware that by asking those questions, it does not give them the, oh, I suddenly now I want to kill myself. That's not the case. But our staff have to be trained to really ask the question so that we can really assess where they're at. If you ask a child, do you want to hurt yourself, and they are suicidal, they may say no, not making that connection. So again, I cannot stress more the importance of being able to use the scary words of kill yourself, suicide, die, those types of things. So with all that being said, we need to assess the intent, duration, severity, and intensity of thoughts associated with such behaviors. Crisis planning continued. This is a two-part process. We need to find out what the client is thinking, the child thinking, and what the parent is thinking in terms of crisis planning. For the client, we would want to ask them, when you are or are not doing well, what do you do? So we can get the client's point of view with this. We also ask the parent rather, what does it look like when your child is or is not doing well? We may get two different answers. It's important for our staff to be aware of both perspectives so that we can help the family to identify what's really going on. For the client, we ask, what ways do you calm yourself down? And a parent, what do you do to calm the situation? For the client, what ways do you calm yourself down? We always talk about in our treatment plans and our ongoing treatment, we talk about coping strategies, breathing strategies, walking away, counting, having a safe word. We need to understand what would work best for the client in that situation. And for the parent, we need to make sure that they are doing their best to calm down the situation. A lot of times we have parents who yell or argue. This may exacerbate the situation. If a client's emotional state is up here and the parent responds in the same high level of emotional state, then it's not going to calm the situation down. So we need to help the parents and the child understand what to do when the emotions are really high, and how to bring that down through remaining calm, speaking in a calm voice, anything that will help to de-escalate the situation. We also need to ask the client who they talk to when they need help. A lot of parents would want the child to talk to them, but in a lot of cases that doesn't happen. So helping the client to identify those people that they feel they can trust with their feelings and their fears and their emotions will be helpful to stop a crisis from occurring. Also, we ask the client, when you feel like you're a danger to yourself, who can you tell? So this is more of the suicidality piece. The need help part might just be when I'm feeling sad or angry, but feeling like a danger to yourself, who then can you talk to? Who is a safe person you can say, I really am feeling like I want to hurt myself, kill myself, die, those types of things. And helping them to identify those people can also help avert many crises. For the parents, we want to ask if they have supports to assist the parent when needed, such as respite. We look at family, friends, and agencies. I know right now that in Wayne County we have a few options for respite. We need to be using those options. We need to really inform the staff of what those options are